All right. Good day, everyone. Here to make a presentation on natural language processing and its immediate applications. Um, all right. To say a little about myself. My name is Dr. Adekule. I'm the Vice President of Product and Engineering at OPay. Erstwhile, I was the Deputy CTO at Venture Garden Group. You may know Venture Garden Group did a lot of things around payments in aviation and education and several other verticals. Before then, I was tech lead at Paycom. Paycom eventually was what got acquired by OPay in 2018. And before then, I was a developer at Telnet Nigeria Limited. So that just kind of summarizes my career history. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at .andekule1. Okay. Just before I go into the details for the day, I want to mention what OPay is exactly about. OPay started operations in Nigeria in 2018. I was I was the first engineering staff, part of the first 5 people that were employed by Opera at the time to help to start the operations of OPay. Basically, it was to do our commission was just to do payments in Africa. That was a commission. So tried to do some things in Kenya and South Africa and then Nigeria. But Nigeria was what took off. And so that's how OPay started. Contrary to most people's opinion, OPay is not a ride-hailing service. I know that's what a lot of people think OPay or remember OPay to be. OPay is by default first a payments company. Yes, we went into the ride business, which was just one of the verticals that we were trying to use to bring people into the OPay ecosystem. But that's not exactly what OPay is. OPay is primarily a payments company. Today, OPay is arguably the largest mobile money operator in Nigeria. Today, OPay has over 300,000 agents spread across every state of the Federation. In terms of number of users on our platform, we have over 5 million account holders. And about 2 million have non-zero balances. So we know that people are transacting on the OPay platform. On NIP, NIBS is the platform that NIP is the platform that does interbank transfers for banks and mobile money. OPay today is the largest non-bank player on NIP. In fact, we control about 80% of non-bank players that do transfers on NIP today. And in the same way on POS terminals, the statistics coming from NIBS as well, we're the second largest payment terminal owner. We have over 50,000 terminals spread across the nation. So most times when you go around town, if you're in Lagos, for instance, and you see all those signposts of people saying POS is available here to do one kind of withdrawal or transfer or anything, many times the terminals that are being used at those locations are mostly OPay terminals. In terms of the size of our infrastructure and what we do daily, we do over 1.5 million transactions daily on our platform. So I know it's a lot, but there's still a long way to go for us as OPay. So that's really who OPay is. Well, basically a payments platform, and we're just operating different other verticals like Ride, what we're doing before. But our strongest bit of the business has been up to today our agency banking and POS applications. Okay, so today I'm to talk, like said during the intro, on natural language processing, which is a branch of artificial intelligence. I think that my objective today is not to go into so much of coding or any of those things. I know everybody here, most people here are probably developers, but I want to just generate our interest and help us to see that there's a way forward here, and there's a gap, there's a huge gap here, and that we need to, as developers and engineers, begin to go into these areas so that we can have we can really turn things around. So I'll be talking generally about AI and data science, and then go further into natural language processing. I'll touch a bit on data preparation, and I'll mention things around EDA and NLP techniques. But just briefly, I really just want to focus more on also our experiences as OPay in this field and what our plans are, and then just arouse the interest of everyone to see how we can get more people in Nigeria, developers and product people, get into AI and natural language processing. Okay, what is artificial intelligence? So basically, it's allowing computers to do what human beings would normally have done. Today, human beings can drive, human beings can read, human beings can listen, we can have conversation, human beings can, there's so much that we do as human beings. But when you now empower the computer or some program on the computer to be able to do these things without any direct human intervention, that's the area, or that's the field of artificial intelligence. I know that many of us will probably know this for a fact. So I'll just mention some few areas. So for instance, we can process images. If I see a picture of myself or a picture of somebody else, I'm able to decipher that this is this other person and this is not me. So there's a field of AI called computer vision that then does something similar. It's able to read images and then identify and map images to persons. I know that Google has done a whole lot of work around this area. So sometimes you see that when you have phones or on your Google Photos, for instance, you find out that different people that are on your Google Photos are identified by Google. Sometimes incorrectly, but sometimes, most of the times, it's accurate, because they are mapping these images with other images of persons that are either in your profile or in other people's profile, and checking what the names are, and they're able to match that. Oh, this person, this image I received, this is actually Dr. Adekune, from reading just the image, or looking at images and be able to say that this is a car, this is a truck, this is an aeroplane. The same way a human being can do those things, that's the same way that computers can be trained to identify from the camera, from the picture that they take, to identify that this is what this object is, or this is who this person is. Today, China has done something great in terms of, well, it's great, but for the social, for the people who push for social justice, maybe it's not something great. They have cameras all around the streets, and so they do facial recognition and identification of people, so they can really say, Dotun was at ShopRite yesterday, and then he went to Magodo, or he went to any place, because there are cameras all over the street that can pick your face, from a distance, and know that this is this particular person. So China has that in some of their areas, some of their regions in Beijing today. That's just to show you the power of what AI can do in terms of computer vision. There's another aspect of AI called regression, which is basically used today for making predictions. For instance, if you look at the US elections, you see when they observe the polls and they're looking at that, they can predict that from the way this thing is going, we can project that this is going to be the winner. So it's just like statistics. I know in those days, people in Excel, accounting people do a lot of things like what if analysis and things like that. So those are projections that we can make, and as developers, we can help to participate in artificial intelligence and help people to make projections, financial projections, economic projections, population projections. For instance, in Nigeria, we can look at the birth rate. We can make projections and say by 2050, there will be this number of people living in Lagos. There will be this number of people that will be above 70. There will be this number of people that will be below 20. So a lot of planning and things can come out when we employ artificial intelligence techniques to get into these things. And there's also separating of information, which is called in AI, it's called classification. AI is able to just decipher that this is this and this is not that, with different techniques. The one I really want to focus on today, which I mentioned, is the ability to read and process text, that which is called natural language processing. I'll go into the details later on. But the way I try to talk about AI and machine learning and deep learning and other things, which I'll try and explain the difference between the terms, but they are all what's used interchangeably in lingua today. It's that when we're in school, we used to have things where you're given an equation, or you're given a problem to solve, and then you have to use an equation to try to solve that problem. So if, in physics, for instance, you will be given a certain man was driving his car at 30 kilometers per hour. He drove for 2 hours at 30 kilometers per hour, then he drove for another 1 hour at 10 kilometers per hour, and they're trying to tell you what was the distance that he eventually moved. And then what we do is that we use the equation of motion to try to fit in the figures and then deduce from that what the distance was, or whatever variable we're looking for. We're able to calculate and arrive at that variable. So that's a typical question. And we've taken that same concept into programming and to development. So when we do most of our programming today, we are using the computer to just arrive at the answer. So in our programming, we give the computer the logic. Basically, we give the computer the equation. So that's what we're doing today. So you and I, all the regular programs that we do in the business logic layer of our development, what we're just doing is we're writing the equation for the computer so that the computer can process and turn out an output. But artificial intelligence is the other way around. And machine learning is the other way around. Instead of giving the computer the equation and saying, give me the answer, we're saying, I will give you the data, I will give you the answers, then you derive the equation and learn it by yourself. Once you learn the equation by yourself, then when I give you subsequent data, or when I give you subsequent questions or subsequent data, you're able to arrive at what the answer should be. So that's the twist that artificial intelligence has, and which is like a layer above. I put here beside us on this page, deriving the equation for motion, for instance. This is S is equals to ut plus half at squared. That's a way of deriving the equation. You are arriving at the equation. We see those questions in those days when we wrote WIAC and other things, where you have to prove a formula to be correct. So you start from some other variables and you're able to arrive at a point that, look, this is the equation. So that's what AI is all about, the ability to derive the equation. I'll say something. So those who are football fans may find this funny, but I just want to use to get the message across. So you have these words used interchangeably, where you have artificial intelligence, you have data science, you have machine learning, you have deep learning. You have all these words used interchangeably, and they are all. I think that everything is still just artificial intelligence to some degree, but to properly illustrate what the capacity of data science. Let me use this scenario. Let's look at this table on the right, right? So on this table on the right, we're trying to measure, for instance, that how the number of days you spend in preseason for a football club, how that correlates with the eventual performance of the team over the course of a season. So that's the example I've placed here. So I just put what I think are the top 8 clubs in the Premiership. So Arsenal, Chelsea, Everton, Leicester, Liverpool, Man City, Man U, and Tottenham. And this is just figures, right? So let's assume Man United are the 4th season. So we'll do Ole out as a hashtag. But look at these figures, right? So you see the number of days. So Arsenal had 19 days of preseason. Chelsea 24, Everton 24, Leicester 20. And then we see their final league points. So we see Arsenal at 59, Chelsea 74, Everton 70, Leicester 20. We see Man United at 36 points at the end of the season. I hope this doesn't come true. And they only had 12 days in preseason. Now, looking at this data, we can kind of make some deductions. But we're not sure yet. And so one of the very first techniques as you go into artificial intelligence and data science is that you do a whole lot of graphs, right? You do a lot of plotting, or what we call data visualization, which is one of the major things that you do in data science. You do data visualization. By looking at this table, we can't really make very comprehensive deductions. But by taking this same data and plotting it using a scatter plot, which is what you have as the image under here, using a scatter plot, you are able to see that you can derive certain things immediately, right? And what are the things that we can see from this graph? First is that there seems to be a positive correlation. That's what we can establish by looking at the way the line goes slanting from the left to the right and slanting upwards from the left to the right. That's a positive graph. If you remember your graph or your mathematical skills, that means there's a positive correlation that as the number of preseason days increase, so also does the performance increase. So that we can deduce that, there's a positive correlation. When we look at the table previously, we can't easily arrive at that position. But the moment you plot it on a graph, you are able to see that there's a positive correlation. And that, so if I increase my preseason days, I know that I can have a better performance as a manager or as a coach. The second thing that we can see is that despite the positive correlation, we see an outlier here. That's the one that is circled in red, the point that is circled in red. And that's Manchester City, right? We're seeing that despite the fact that it has, based on this data, has just 17 preseason days, it still went ahead and scored almost 75 league points at the end of the day. So why is that? So those questions begin to arise. Why is that? What makes Man City have a different result that does not follow what seems to be the general trend across bits? And then the third thing we see is that you can actually have an equation that shows the actual relationship between preseason days and final league position. So y is equal to 3x plus 35. That's the slope of this data that we see. And looking at that, then we can see clearly that if I want to get 100 points, I can easily say this is the number of preseason days that I need to have so that I can arrive at that position. So data doesn't lie, right? Data always shows us what the true position of things are. Graphs always speak louder than the tables do. So we can see all that from this stuff. So these are some of the things that when we get into data science, analyzing data, these are some of the things that we're able to get. So this is just from a managerial or football managerial position. So you can imagine all the other important applications of data science, artificial intelligence as we go ahead. Now let's get into the meat of things. So what is natural language processing? It's the ability for us to find meaningful information from text data. So the same way that we're getting information from data that is in tables, that is in CSV. That's the way computers typically like to have data, right? We like to have structured data. If you're an engineer, you're a developer, and you're trying to process some stuff, you want that data to come in a structured way, where it's a list, it's an array, it's in one of those structured forms. That's easy to process. However, many times data does not come in that form. When it comes as raw text, like this communication, this Google GDG events, for instance, now the data is not coming in as tables or arrays. It's coming just anyhow, coming in different ways. So how do you then derive, how do you analyze this kind of data? So that's the field that natural language processing tries to deal with. Of course, natural language is things like English, Yoruba, German, not Java or Python or all the languages that we're used to as developers. So the ability for us to let the computer process natural language, that's what this is about. The trending stuff during the NSAS was Sorosoke Ewere. So imagine the computer being able to process and interpret that, oh, this is what this means. Language evolves, right? So there's so much that is evolving, there's so much that is changing all through. What's the ability for our computers to be able to process the data and know exactly what it means and react based on that. So just to take this a little bit further, right? One of the, or some of the areas that I feel that NLP can be very, very relevant is in the area of customer support, right? So on Twitter today, or even on your Play Store, you find lots of feedback coming from customers. Now, what people have done typically is to put rating systems on Play Store, where you are saying, rate my app. I've done this, and people are able to give you a 3-star or 4-star or a 2-star based on their experience with your apps. However, you don't find everybody that uses your app going on Play Store and going back to rate the experience. A whole lot of people would rather just go on Twitter, social media, Instagram, wherever, and then just say what they feel about it. They either say that this is great, or they say that this is bad, and they say that this is whack. How do you, as a programmer or as a product person, how do you harness and measure the feeling of the people? How do you measure and gather the sentiments together and be able to arrive at logical decisions based on, oh, this new feature in my app, people do not like it, or this other stuff that I'm doing, this is what people are very passionate about. These are the real challenges of people. How do you gather that and then be able to rate it and use that and to then refine your product to come back at something that is better? So that's the whole area of what we call sentiment analysis in natural language processing. The ability to scrape data from the web and then begin to measure what's the feeling, what's the opinion of people concerning a particular thing. What do people feel about Trump? What do people feel about Buhari? What's the general heart conditions of people concerning this kind of stuff? So this is very relevant in customer support. It's very relevant in product design, that where is this going? Where is this going? So this is something that we need to, I think that's why I feel that I'm so passionate about natural language, that this is an area we just have to get into, because we can build so much better products when we're able to harness this in an empirical way that we can present. Of course, there is also what we call conversational AI. Last year, we were approached by Google, that's OPay. We were approached by Google to work together with them to have some early bird view to some of the APIs they have around conversational AI, especially with Google Assistant and things like that. They wanted us to use Google Assistant to enable transactions on OPay. So people could just say, pay Femi 20,000 naira from my wallet, and then the Google Assistant will pick that up, send an instruction to the OPay app or back end, and to recognize my voice. Tell me, do you want to pay to his bank account or to his wallet, or which of the bank accounts? And then I'm able to converse directly with Google Assistant and arrive at a transaction. So these are the opportunities. So we can see that conversational AI is an area that is going to happen. At the Google I/O in 2018, we see the CEO of Google do a presentation where there was an engagement between Google Assistant and booking an appointment, an airport appointment with a salon. And it was the person on the other side never knew that it was a machine that was speaking speaking to him or her. They just thought it was a natural stuff. So things like that are things that are possible. But I'll tell us why as OPay we're looking at this and why this is necessary. Of course, there are other areas like fraud investigation and things like that, which is a big. If you're in the payments industry, you know that that's a big issue, right? But how do we use AI to detect patterns? How do we match patterns and be able to say proactively before the fraud occurs that this number that is trying to make this transaction to this destination is probably a fraud. We can observe patterns in the data and we can arrive at positions. So these are all the things that are possible using natural language processing. So today, on all those channels, on Twitter, on social media, on those areas, the rate of data generation is so high. I mean, data, every movement, everywhere you move, every tweet, every text, it's data that is being generated. I mean, there's so much data in the world today that it's mind-blowing. And we don't have, using our traditional programming approach where we have data in tables and then we try to structure and then try to utilize that data, we can't catch up. There is no way we can catch up. That's why I put a graph here about the rate of data generation. You can see it's growing almost exponentially. And the rate at which we're able to harness that data, where you and I can sit down and write regular programs to analyze that data, to draw inference and information from that data, our rate is growing just in a linear way. So there is no way, there is such a gap, there is such a huge gap between data generation rates and data utilization rates. So if we continue on this same trajectory, there is no way there will be so much data available that can turn things around for a nation, for an economy, for a company, that is available and you're not taking advantage of. So it's really important that we look for other methods, and AI, machine learning, NLP are things that can help us to close that gap, right? Because all these channels are generating so fast. You need something that is also an electronic channel that can take advantage of that data as fast as it's being generated. I really hope I'm clear on that. I'll give you a scenario right now. OPay has grown over the last 2 years from doing 1,000 transactions per day to doing over 1.5 million transactions per day. That's massive growth in a very short space of time. So the same way that we have grown in terms of transaction rates, that's the same way that customer support requests have grown. So you can imagine that if you do 1 million transactions per day, if you have 10% or 5% of those transactions having an issue, for 1.5 million, it means that at least I will have maybe 10,000 or thereabouts customer support requests coming in a day. There is no way you can undo all those requests using human agents in a single day. And so what begins to build up is a backlog of things that have not been sorted. And that just is recipe for disaster, because if you continue to grow at that pace, you will never get to that point. Okay. So that's why I feel as OPay, we feel that if we employ natural language processing, we're able to allow our users communicate with us, and instead of a human agent picking that up and responding to those issues and trying to sort them out, we should allow a machine or some bot to undo most of those requests and solve it on behalf of the customers. That's the way forward. And as Nigeria begins to build more and more systems and platforms that have large customer base and have large number of transactions and engagements daily, there is no other way except that we all move towards natural language processing to see how we can get things done. In OPay, for instance, one thing we had done before was to have support engineers, but support engineers are just not, they just don't want to. It's boring if I'm an engineer or a developer to spend my time just doing support. I'd rather just do, if we do support for a while, it's fine, but extended support periods does not make sense. And I think it's counterproductive eventually. Additionally, is that humans have limitations and deficiencies. So when your customer support agent, for instance, is tired or is moody or is cranky, that tells on your customer outcomes. If there's an engagement with the customer that calls in. The other solution that people have done is IVR. IVR is whack. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know many times when I'm calling an IVR machine on maybe DSTV or any of service providers for me, once they tell you press 0 to check whether it's a financial, or press 2 for this. I always wait for the option that press 9 to speak to an agent. I'm looking for where to speak to an agent. So that just shows you where people want to go to. So that's why NLP is something that is really important. I'll mention something about a support scenario that we had in OPay, where somebody logged onto his account and then he did not find all his transactions, and and he had done lots of transactions. And now he logged on, he could not find any transaction in his app. This guy was from Badagry, and he came all the way from Badagry to our office in Ikeja, just to complain that he could not see the transactions on his app. His transaction history on his app, because his money has been wiped off and his transaction history has been deleted. By the time he was making a fuss, and I said, look, let's have him. We checked on our dashboard, we couldn't find any history there. Then it came to my mind that let me just use his email address and check on the DB to know what's going on. And then I found that he had another phone number that was also on the system. And then I checked that phone number, and we were able to pull out the history of that account. So obviously he had 2 accounts on OPay, one that had lots of history and balance, another one that he had not used before. For some reason, he had been logging on with the second account that was empty and thinking that it was a first account. And for that way, he came all the way from Badagry to the office in Alausa. I can imagine the travel time, you can imagine the panic that he had, and all for something that could be solved in 2 minutes. I mean, if we had AI that it could speak with, understand its challenges, and the computer itself, the machine or the programs itself can then just deduce and try things out. The program itself can give him a solution in a very short while without him having to travel or do anything. So AI NLP can help to push things towards always on 24/7 support throughout the day, throughout the week, 365 days a year, if we go in this direction. For OPay in the next year, we're moving towards more of our API. So we're opening up some of our APIs so that people can begin to not just be a platform for consumers directly, but a platform for businesses. I put the link there on documentation.opayweb.com, where people can make and receive payment with cards, bank accounts, wallets, on the web and on the mobile phone as well. They can carry out disbursement and cash out at 300K agents. We want people to take advantage of this. But why am I saying this during this hackathon? Is that as we move into that space where we are expanding even beyond where we are now, it now becomes extremely much more important for us to have NLP and AI and things like that to handle our customer support. Otherwise, we cannot scale at that level. So if you want to try out our APIs, please just go to documentation.opayweb.com to see some of the things that we're doing. They're still early stage, but of APIs, but just try it out. You see things there. We want you to help to be part of the beta testers and things like that for us to get to the point where we want to be. Can I go into concept and tool needed for NLP? So the typical language we use for NLP is Python. That's what I use, although there are other languages as well. There are different techniques that are there in NLP, but I just, so that we don't take too much time, right, for this place, I just want to encourage us to get into AI, get into NLP, and then see how Nigeria as a nation will transform, and the tech ecosystem in Nigeria will get to another level altogether. Thank you for having me and for having OPay. The hackathon is still on for OPay hackathon. If you want to check it out, please ask some of the organizers. Still open, and there are prizes to be won today and tomorrow. All right. Have a lovely day.